The man walked on his hands across the burning sand. He did it to keep his mind steady. He did it to count his breaths. When his shoulders began to shake, he flipped upright in one smooth motion and stood still. His name was Jace Carter. People called him a field mechanic. He liked that. It sounded normal. Nothing about this place was normal. Two suns hung over the desert of Taller. They pressed heat down like heavy hands. The dunes looked like waves made of glass. His map said a small navigation beacon should be here. The map was wrong. There was only wind. There was the hiss of sand. There was that big empty silence that makes smart people careful. Jace tasted grit. He spat. He tapped his wrist unit. No signal. He looked left and right, then again, slower. He saw no beacon. He saw something else. A sound reached him, thin and sharp. Not a short cry. A long scream, shaped by cruel hands. Someone was making it last. Jace moved toward it, careful and low. He took the slope on his belly. He peeked over the ridge. 3 men in desert camo stood around a kneeling figure. They had pulse rifles. They had the lazy swagger of bullies who think they always win. One held a brand. The iron glowed dull red. The kneeling figure was a woman. Her skin was deep green, polished by sun and dust. Clan ink curled along her arms like old rivers. Her lip bled. Her eyes were bright amber. She did not beg. The iron touched her shoulder. The skin hissed. She inhaled hard, but she did not scream this time. She looked at her captors like a queen who has learned patience. Jace stood. He walked down the dune like the ground belonged to him. "Gentlemen," he said. His voice was calm. It carried well. "Your method is bad. If you must be monsters, at least learn technique." The biggest man swung his rifle up. "Who are you?" he spat. "Concerned citizen," Jace said. The brandman laughed. "Walk away, old-timer." Jace did not walk away. His hands hung loose at his sides. His eyes were half-lidded, like he was bored. Then he moved. The first rifle met his palm and turned aside. A knee hit a stomach. Air left a body with a sad sound. An elbow drove into a throat. The third man fired too late. Sand jumped near Jace's ear. Jace's boot swept his legs. Face, meet ground. For seconds, maybe 5. The men stayed down, coughing grit and panic. "Run," Jace said. They ran. Close enough. He turned to the woman. She rose from her knees without help. She swayed once, then found her balance. Up close, Jace saw the burn across her shoulder. The edges were already angry. "You hurt," he said. She studied him as if weighing a tool. Her voice was low and steady. "I am Sayla Nyr. I am last voice of the Jade Ledge clan." She stepped closer. Her eyes did not blink. Her hand caught his wrist with sudden strength. "Human," she said, and the word sounded old. "Bind with me. I will bear you strong heirs, if you save my people." The desert seemed to pause. Heat shimmered. Wind held its breath. Jace blinked once. "That is a big offer for a first meeting," he said. "Start smaller. Water. Shade. A bandage." He took off his jacket and set it over her shoulders. He cut clean strips from his undershirt. He opened a small med pack, and the antiseptic bit the air. "This will sting," he warned. "It already does," she said. He wrapped the burn with quick, neat hands. He worked like a man fixing a thing that must not fail. When he finished, she did not thank him. She stood taller. "The Vartal hunt us," she said. 40 remain. Maybe less. Jace looked at the twin suns, and then at the endless dunes. He looked at Sayla, and at the branded skin he could not unsee. "Then we move," he said. "North. I know a dead survey station. It has bones we can wake." Sayla's jaw set. "Lead, human," she said. "I will keep pace." Jace started walking. The desert watched them go. Somewhere behind, 3 men limped into heat and fear. Somewhere ahead, an empty station waited like a locked door. Jace flexed his fingers once. They still shook. He put them in his pockets and kept going. He told himself he was only a mechanic. The desert did not believe him. The wind carried dust and the smell of iron. Jace and Sayla moved through the dunes, the world around them glowing gold under Taller's twin suns. The silence between them was heavy, broken only by the whisper of sand beneath their boots. When they reached a dead thorn tree, Jace stopped. It offered little shade, but it was enough. Sayla's legs trembled once before she forced herself still. Her skin gleamed with sweat, the burn across her shoulder raw and angry. Jace dropped his pack, pulled out his small med kit, and said quietly, "Sit. I can stand. I didn't ask what you can do. Her eyes narrowed, but she sat. He cleaned the wound, steady hands moving with practiced precision. The antiseptic hissed. She didn't flinch. You move like a fighter, she said. He smiled faintly. And you talk like a queen. I was born one, she said simply. Before the Vartal burned our home. The name hung between them, sharp as a blade. Sayla spoke of the Jade Ledge clan, once the guardians of crystal veins that ran beneath the cliffs. The crystals gave the planet balance, pulling moisture from the air, feeding rivers underground. But the Vartal Empire came with drills and greed. They took too much, too fast, and when the clan resisted, they called it rebellion. 40 of us left, she said. Maybe fewer now. Jace listened. He had heard 1,000 stories like it. Strong people crushed under someone else's idea of progress. When the sun dipped lower, he handed her water. Drink. She hesitated. You may need it. I'll manage, he said. Mechanics don't work well with dry throats. That earned the ghost of a smile. Small. Real. As night came, the temperature fell fast. The desert that burned by day froze by dusk. Jace set up a small fire using a heat cell and broken branches. The flame flickered blue. Sayla watched him quietly. You act as if this is all routine. It is, Jace said. Different planet, same story. Someone breaks something. I fix it. You fix broken machines? Machines. Systems. People. Depends on the day. A voice answered from the darkness. Then maybe you can fix hope. Jace spun, knife in hand. An old man stepped forward, robes torn, face lined by time. His eyes, however, were sharp. I am Corin, he said, raising both hands. Teacher of the young, when there were still young to teach. Sayla rose at once. Old teacher. They embraced briefly. The old man's voice shook. Word spreads fast in the dunes. They say a human fought 3 Vartal with bare hands. Hope travels even faster than rumor. Jace relaxed, but didn't sheath his knife. You have a strange definition of rumor control. Corin smiled thinly. And you have a strange definition of humility. By midnight, a few more survivors appeared, half-starved, desperate, but alive. A mother carrying a sleeping child. 2 engineers from a mining outpost. A warrior missing an arm, but still standing tall. Jace studied them and said, we can't stay here. There's an old survey station 2 days north. If we reach it, maybe we can make something that lasts. 2 days? Corin asked. Through open dunes? Better than waiting here to die. Sayla's gaze met his. You speak like someone used to leading. He shrugged. I'm used to moving. That's all. They set off before dawn. The journey was brutal. The dunes seemed endless, the heat unrelenting. Twice, they thought they heard engines in the distance. Once, a storm nearly buried them. But Jace never slowed. He carried the weak. He repaired the cracked canteens. When one child coughed blood, he tore his shirt to make a mask. He didn't speak of kindness. He simply acted. By the second sunset, they reached the station, half buried in sand, walls collapsed, solar panels shattered. To the others, it looked like a tomb. To Jace, it looked like potential. He kicked the door open and stepped inside. Let's see what's left. The lights flickered faintly. A hum answered. Sayla stared, disbelief in her voice. You can make this work? Jace smiled, rolling up his sleeves. Lady, I can make anything work. Just give me time. For the first time in days, the survivors laughed. It was thin and tired, but it was laughter. And as the 2 suns vanished beyond the horizon, Jace Carter began to build the impossible. The first dawn at the abandoned station arrived painted in copper light. Sand still whispered through broken vents. The air smelled of rust and old storms. Jace Carter had been awake all night. He worked like a man chasing time. Broken circuits became power conduits. Scrap metal became shelter walls. By morning, the dead station hummed faintly, like a heart remembering how to beat. Sayla watched from the doorway, arms folded. You move like you've done this before, she said. I told you. I fix things. Machines don't bleed, she said softly. Neither do I. Not if I can help it. She didn't believe him. By mid-morning, the survivors had water again. Jace had cracked an old purifier, replaced the filters, and rerouted power from the emergency grid. When the first drops flowed from the tap, the crowd stared as if witnessing magic. Jace just nodded once. Told you. Potential. But hope never comes alone. It brings hunters. The sound came just before noon. Distant hums that didn't belong to wind. Engines. Vartal scouts. Positions, Jace said calmly. The refugees looked at him blankly. They were farmers, traders, engineers, not soldiers. He sighed, checked his sidearm, and looked at Sayla. You fight. She drew her knife. Better than I pray. Good. Let's make this fast. The attack came swift and sloppy. 3 desert crafts circled the ruins, spewing red dust. Pulse rifles flared blue against the walls. Jace moved like he'd rehearsed this dance 1,000 times. He wasn't faster than the shots. He was simply not there when they arrived. One enemy dropped, then another. When a third crept behind Sayla, Jace's knife flashed, silent and clean. Minutes later, the dunes were quiet again. Sayla's chest heaved. Sweat cut lines through the dust on her face. You move like no mechanic I've seen, she said. He was reloading calmly. Maybe I had good teachers. She stepped closer. And what did they teach you? To survive things I shouldn't. The rest of the day passed in uneasy silence. The refugees cleaned up the battlefield, scared but grateful. Corin, the old teacher, looked at Jace with something like suspicion. You fight like the old stories. The ones before the empires came. Stories lie, Jace replied, eyes on his tools. Not all of them. That night, when the survivors slept, Jace sat by the half-lit fire, sharpening a blade that had seen too many planets. Sayla sat across from him, her burn now wrapped neatly. I need truth, she said suddenly. You have it. No, I have smoke and riddles. You fixed our station, killed soldiers, built defenses in a day. That is not a wanderer's life. He looked up, his expression unreadable. I fix what's broken, he said finally. Sometimes that means people. Sometimes planets. Sayla studied him for a long moment. Then she reached across the fire and pressed a hand to his. Her skin was cool, steady. Then fix mine, she said. Fix what they broke. He didn't pull away. That's the plan. By morning, more survivors had arrived. Drawn by the signal beacon Jace had reactivated. They came with stories of burning villages and poison wells. Among them was a young Vartal lieutenant, wounded and bound. The clan had captured him the night before while he scavenged for supplies. Jace crouched in front of him. Name? Lieutenant Rencor, he said, chin up. You're all going to die? The crystals are dying, and when they go, this planet will burn. Sayla stepped forward, fury in her voice. Lies. Ren shook his head. I've seen the data. The water cycle's collapsing. The Vartal dig because they have to. Not for greed, survival. The firelight flickered across Jace's face. How long? 40 years, Ren said. Maybe less. Silence fell. Even the wind paused. When the soldier was taken away, Sayla turned to Jace. You believe him? I believe the world is dying, he said quietly, and that no one's trying to stop it. You think you can? He looked up at the stars, twin suns gone now, their ghosts glowing behind the horizon. I don't know, he said, but fixing is what I do. And somewhere deep beneath the sand, the old station's power grid surged again, brighter, louder, alive. The first light of hope, and the first shadow of something much larger waking up. 3 days after the attack, the abandoned station no longer looked dead. Wires snaked across its walls. Lights flickered like lazy fireflies. Children's laughter echoed through the metal halls. The desert ruin had turned into something new, a beginning. But beginnings attract attention. Jace Carter knew at the moment the comms started humming with faint static. Someone was listening. He stood outside the shelter, scanning the horizon. The twin suns bled crimson across the dunes, turning everything gold and dangerous. Sayla joined him. Her burn had begun to heal, but her eyes still carried the weight of her clan's ghosts. You haven't slept in 2 nights, she said. I'll sleep when the static stops. You think the Vartal are coming again? I think they never stopped. That evening, a storm rolled over the desert, not of wind, but of betrayal. It started with Corinne, the old teacher, rushing into the main hall. His face was pale. Jace, Sayla, come. You must see this. Inside the command room stood Kieran Marr, one of the traders who had joined them a week earlier. He looked calm, too calm. On the table before him lay a metal idol, a prayer totem, cracked open like a seed. Inside pulsed a small red light. A transmitter. Sayla's voice went cold. You've been sending our location. Kieran didn't deny it. You don't understand, he said. You can't fight them. They'll burn everything. I just wanted to survive. By handing over children? Sayla snapped. Kieran raised his hands. The Vartal promised mercy. Jace's tone was flat. Empires don't promise mercy. They rent it by the hour. The refugees watched from the corners of the room, waiting for judgment. Jace said nothing. He let Sayla decide. After a long silence, she spoke. Your in-law says betrayal is death. But I won't start our new world with executions. She looked at Kieran. You'll leave at dawn. Take whoever believes you. The desert will decide your fate. Kieran's eyes filled with disbelief. You'd let me go? I said I wouldn't kill you, she said. I didn't say you'd live. He left that night. A few followed. The rest stayed. When morning came, the sand shimmered again, with more than sunlight. Engines. Dozens of them. A full Vartal assault squad. Jace's calm voice carried through the compound. Positions. Get the non-combatants underground. Seal the water tanks. Sayla grabbed her rifle. We'll never hold against that many. Then we don't hold, he said. We move. The sky broke open with gunfire. Plasma bolts tore through the air, searing the sand into glass. The survivors scattered between the broken walls. Jace fought like a storm disguised as a man. His movements were fluid, too precise to be luck. He didn't aim, he predicted. Every time someone screamed, he was already there, pulling them to cover or ending the threat that caused it. One Vartal soldier fired point blank. Jace caught the barrel with his bare hand and twisted. Metal screamed. The gun folded like paper. Then, amid the chaos, an elder cried out, Corin, watching from the shelter. By the stars, he moves like the soulborn. The word rippled through the survivors like lightning. The soulborn. The mythical human warriors of old. The ones who had walked between galaxies and vanished into silence. The Vartal soldiers hesitated. Even fear can remember legends. And Jace, seeing their hesitation, made sure the legend lived again. He moved faster, hit harder, until the last gun fell silent. Then it was over. Smoke, blood, quiet. Sayla found him kneeling in the sand, blood running from his nose. Blue light pulsed under his skin, tracing the shape of metal along his spine. Jace! She ran to him, catching him as he fell forward. He gasped, shaking. Implants recalibrating. Just give me a minute. You're dying. Not yet, he whispered. Just rebooting. The survivors watched in stunned silence. The man who had saved them was no mere mechanic. He was something older, heavier. When the tremors stopped, Jace opened his eyes again. I lose something each time I use it, he said quietly. What do you lose? Sayla asked. He looked at her, tired but alive. Pieces of who I wanted to be. Sayla brushed the blood from his cheek and said softly, Then stop being what the galaxy made you. Be what we need instead. He smiled faintly. A mechanic? She nodded. A man. That night, as they rebuilt their walls and buried their dead, the first true wind of change swept across the desert. The survivors didn't whisper Soulborn anymore. They whispered another name. Carter of the Dunes, the man who fought death itself to fix what was broken. 2 weeks after the battle, the dunes around the old station still shimmered with melted glass. The desert had swallowed the wreckage, but the scars remained. Smoking craters, half-buried rifles, burned armor. The survivors rebuilt. Again. They always rebuilt. Jace Carter moved through the camp like a ghost made of grease and purpose. He patched solar panels, welded doors, checked the water filters twice. Every system worked because he refused to rest. Sayla watched him from the shade of a half-repaired canopy. Her burn had faded, but new lines had formed on her face. Lines carved by responsibility. You act like if you stop working, the stars will fall, she said. They already did, Jace answered. He didn't explain. She didn't ask. That night, the wind shifted. The air carried a strange static hum. Then, from the east, a shimmer appeared. 3 small crafts gliding low, lights muted, engines silent. Visitors, Jace muttered. And not the murdering kind, I hope. The ships landed beyond the dunes. Out stepped Ambassador Elon Vor, wearing a white diplomatic cloak dusted with sand. He wasn't a soldier. He didn't move like one. Behind him walked 2 guards, unarmed. A message of peace or overconfidence. Sayla's hand hovered over her sidearm. Empire. Jace nodded slowly. But not military. Look at the crest, civil authority. We're stopped at the edge of their rebuilt settlement. Mechanic Carter. Clan Mother Nwire, he greeted. Sayla's voice hardened. You're far from your polished towers. I'm here to offer survival, the ambassador said. Not conquest. They met in the main hall, half broken, half reborn. Vor placed a data slate on the table. Its light cast strange reflections across their faces. He spoke carefully. The Vartal military fractured after General Heron's defeat. The civil authority has taken control of planetary affairs. We know the water is dying. We know our empire caused it. And we know your settlement has done what ours could not. Restore balance. Jace leaned forward. You're admitting guilt. Brave for a politician. I'm admitting math, Vor replied. Without cooperation, this planet has 30 years left. He slid the slate toward them. A proposal, joint engineering operations, shared mining rights, full citizenship for your people. Sayla laughed, sharp and humorless. Citizenship under those who slaughtered us. Citizenship with equal voice, Vor said. If this experiment fails, both sides die. Together. Jace's eyes narrowed. What's the catch? Vor hesitated. General Heron still commands loyal troops. He plans to erase this settlement within days to prove peace impossible. But if you help me expose his sabotage, his manipulation of the planet's climate data, we can stop him. So you want me to steal proof from his fortress? Jace said. I want you to save the world you've started to build, Vor replied. Silence. The only sound was wind crawling across the roof. After the meeting, Sayla found Jace outside, sitting on a broken generator, staring at the twin moons. You're thinking about saying yes, she said. I'm thinking about what happens if I don't. You don't trust him. I don't trust anyone. But numbers don't lie, and dying of thirst isn't a victory. She took a deep breath, then said, If you go, I go. You shouldn't. Because I'm the clan mother? Because you're pregnant, he said quietly. She froze. How long have you known? Your heartbeat gives it away, he said. You've been moving like someone carrying the future. For the first time since he met her, Sayla looked uncertain. Then you understand why I have to come. My child deserves a world that lives. Jace sighed. You always make the impossible sound reasonable. That night, the two of them stood before the gathered clan. Jace spoke first. There's a fortress in the South Dunes. Inside it, truth. If we get it, we have a future. If we don't, the desert wins. Sayla stepped forward, her voice strong. We will not hide anymore. We'll fight for the right to build, to exist. The crowd roared. But Jace's eyes stayed cold. He'd fought for existence before, on other worlds, under other suns. It always came with a price. He glanced at Sayla and thought, this time, the price might be me. As the twin moons rose, they began preparing for the most dangerous thing they'd ever done. Not another battle, but the theft of truth from the heart of an empire. The night before the storm felt too calm. Even the wind seemed afraid to speak. Inside the old station, Jace Carter and Sayla Nyr moved through the shadows like ghosts rehearsing a final act. On the table between them lay a schematic of Fort Heron, the Vartal stronghold that ruled the southern dunes. A fortress of steel buried under sand, ringed by drones and sensor towers. Jace traced a path on the map with a gloved finger. North wall, service vents, then the data core, he said quietly. Sayla frowned. That vent is death. I've met death, he said. He's slower than I am. She didn't laugh. Her hand rested briefly on her stomach. He saw the motion, said nothing. Outside, the survivors gathered in the flickering light of the repair bay. They weren't soldiers, but they carried blades, rifles, determination. Corin, the old teacher, handed Jace a small charm carved from stone. Old superstition, Corin said. For luck. Luck's a skill, Jace replied. Then think of it as a reminder. By midnight, the two of them rode out. Jace on a scavenged hoverbike, Sayla close behind, the desert stretching endless before them. The stars above looked like silver wounds across the dark. Neither spoke for hours. When the fortress came into view, it rose like a metal mountain, bristling with towers, its lights stabbing into the night. The hum of power generators rolled across the dunes. Jace slowed the bike, eyes scanning for patterns. They rely too much on automation, he said. Machines have blind spots. Can you exploit them? He smiled faintly. Lady, that's what I was built for. They slipped into the north sector through the waste ducts. The air reeked of ozone and decay. Guards passed above, their boots echoing on metal floors. Every sound felt amplified, every breath counted. In the core chamber, the walls pulsed with blue light, rows of servers humming like sleeping beasts. Jace approached the console, tools in hand. Sayla covered the door, pulse rifle steady. He connected his neural link. Electricity crawled along the scars on his spine. He flinched, teeth clenched, forcing his mind into the data stream. Images flooded his head, water flow graphs, atmospheric decay rates, falsified reports. Heron's signature stamped across every line. He was accelerating the planet's collapse to justify endless mining. Sayla's voice broke through the static. "Jace, got it," he said through gritted teeth. "Proof, coordinates, the whole rotten truth." Then alarm screamed. Doors sealed. Security drones dropped from the ceiling like silver wasps. "Run," Sayla asked. "Run," he agreed. They fought their way through the corridors, moving as one. Jace's plasma knife cut through drone limbs. Sayla's rifle carved light into the darkness. The fortress trembled with chaos. They reached the exit tunnel just as the first explosion hit. Heron's troops were already swarming. "Go," Jace shouted, handing her the data core. She shoved it back into his chest. "Together or not at all. Don't be stupid." Too late. They fought side by side, back to back, until dawn cracked over the dunes. By then, the fortress was burning, a sun made of vengeance. They stumbled into the open desert, wounded, exhausted, but alive. Jace fell to one knee, sparks dancing along his spine. His skin glowed faintly blue, like molten metal under glass. "Jace," Sayla knelt beside him. "System overload," he gasped. "Just recalibrating." She held him close, whispering a mix of human curses and ancient prayers. When his breathing steadied, she looked east. Far across the sands, dust clouds rose. Heron's army, already moving toward the oasis. Jace stood unsteadily, pain etched into his face. "How long do we have?" "Until sunset," she said. "Then we make a stand." They limped back toward home, carrying the truth that could save or destroy everything. By the time they reached the settlement, word had spread. Hundreds waited. Refugees, farmers, engineers, warriors, all holding their breath for orders. Jace looked at them and felt something shift inside him. For the first time, this wasn't a repair job. It was his people. Sayla climbed the platform beside him, raising her voice. "The Empire comes tonight. They think we are weak. Let's show them what unity looks like." The crowd erupted. Children ran to carry water. Elders sharpened tools into weapons. Even the sky seemed to tighten with anticipation. As the sun dipped low, Jace touched Sayla's arm. "Stay back when it starts." She smiled fiercely. "You still don't understand. This is our fight." The wind picked up, carrying the smell of lightning and sand. In the distance, the first armored columns appeared, metal beasts crawling toward them. Jace cracked his neck, rolled his shoulders, and said softly, "Time to show them what a mechanic can do." The sky burned red long before the first shot was fired. General Heron's army rolled over the dunes like an iron tide. Tanks, drones, banners of flame and steel. The air hummed with static. The smell of ozone mixed with fear. From the high ridge above the oasis, Jace Carter watched the horizon turn into fire. His pulse implants flickered faintly beneath his skin, whispering promises he'd sworn never to use again. He touched the scar at the base of his neck. "Not this time," he muttered. Below, the settlement waited, no longer a cluster of ruins, but a living city born of defiance. Water ran through its channels. Wind turbines hummed. And on every rooftop stood a fighter, a dreamer, or a survivor. Sayla Nyr stood beside him, armor painted with the colors of her clan, green and gold, reborn from ashes. 30 armored units, she said. Twice that in infantry. Jace smiled faintly. Then we're outnumbered by the usual ratio. She turned to him. Promise me something. If it's another one of those blood oaths, I'm already overbooked. Her glare softened. Promise me you won't become that weapon again. He looked at her, eyes full of ghosts. I can't promise that. Then promise you'll come back. That I can try. When the first shell landed, the ground shook like a heartbeat. Sand erupted, metal screamed, and the final battle for Taller began. Jace moved through the chaos, shouting orders, rerouting power grids, directing fire. The people fought with everything they had. Converted irrigation cannons fired bursts of steam that blinded drones. Children carried ammo between barricades, and Krath warriors used broken vehicles as shields. For every tank that advanced, another fell into one of Jace's buried traps, electromagnetic mines crafted from old salvage turbines. He didn't fight like a hero. He fought like an engineer who knew how to break systems from the inside. Then came the sound, a rising, deafening roar. Dropships. Heron's personal guard. The general himself emerged, tall and armored, face hidden behind a mirrored visor. Jace Carter. His voice boomed through speakers. The ghost of Soulborn. I should have burned you with your world. Jace stared back, calm. You tried. Didn't stick. The two forces clashed. Heron's soldiers pushed forward, overwhelming. The defenders began to falter. Sayla fought beside her people, rifle blazing, movements sharp and deadly. But when she saw Jace stumble, clutching his chest as blue light flared along his spine, she ran to him. Don't, she shouted. You'll burn yourself from the inside. He looked at her, eyes glowing faintly now. Better me than them. And then he changed. Not into a god, not into a monster, just into something more than human. Every motion precise. Every strike inevitable. The desert lit with arcs of white fire as his implants sang. He tore through drones, ripped apart mechs, shattered tanks with his bare hands. But every move drained him, flickered his pulse, burned another piece of his humanity away. When Heron charged, plasma sword raised, Jace met him head-on. The clash was blinding, light and sound collapsing into pure energy. When the dust cleared, Heron lay broken. Jace stood, barely, smoke rising from his body. Sayla reached him as he fell to his knees. You won, she whispered. He smiled weakly. No, we did. In the silence that followed, a new sound filled the air, engines. But these carried no weapons. They carried banners of peace. Ambassador Vor had arrived with civil authority ships, broadcasting Heron's crimes to the whole empire. The war ended not with cheers, but with the sigh of a dying storm. Weeks passed. The oasis grew larger. The rivers deepened. Children ran where soldiers once bled. Jace walked with a limp now, his implants fading to faint silver scars. He didn't mind. He'd traded power for peace, and for her. One evening, as the twin suns sank behind the dunes, Sayla stood beside him, her belly round with new life. Do you ever miss it? She asked. The fighting. No, she said. The running. He smiled. I don't run anymore. I build. Below them, the people celebrated Reclamation Day, their first festival of unity. Children tried walking on their hands, laughing, falling, trying again. Sayla laughed softly. You started that foolish tradition. Perspective, Jace said. The world looks better upside down. As the night deepened, he felt her hand in his, strong and steady. He looked at the city they'd built together, a home carved from ruin. Sayla, he said. We fixed it. The planet, the people, maybe even ourselves. She smiled, eyes reflecting starlight. Then let's keep fixing. Above them, the stars of two worlds burned together. And in the quiet between heartbeats, Jace Carter finally understood. The strongest thing a human could build wasn't a machine or a fortress, but a future that refused to die.